My name is Karen Russo. I am president and founder of the Wrongful Death Injury Institute, a consulting firm that fights for the lives of those who are sick, those who are dying, and those who have died within the U.S. jail and prison system, hospitals, and nursing homes across the country. Our expertise is jail and prison policy and procedure, healthcare policy, procedure, and protocols, and death issues within the system itself and out in free society. The issues we deal with are multifaceted and center around inmate medical and mental health care. That health care is delayed, denied, withheld, and misrepresented in pursuit of cost containment. Thousands upon thousands of inmate patients have and continue to incur permanent medical disabilities or death due to these aggressive cost containment measures. For example, broken bones are ignored and not set. Stage 4 wounds are not treated. Diabetes is grossly mismanaged. Heart conditions are treated with Maalox. Cancers are treated with Robitussin. Amputations are performed due to gangrene. Blindness results due to untreated eye infections and undiagnosed brain tumors. Staph infections are treated as flu. Asthma becomes a death sentence. Mental health care drugs are withheld and denied to punish behavior, the very behavior that's caused because they're not receiving the meds. Medical conditions that are caused by correctional and medical staffers are premeditatedly ignored and not addressed. Death certificate, cause, and manner of death are inaccurately assessed. Substandard state-ordered autopsies are the norm, not the exception. This pattern of behavior is not new. It's been in place since the 70s. Regardless of the thousands upon thousands of news articles, investigative reports, and video highlighting these medical abuses, it has not improved, nor is it likely to do so anytime in the future for very specific reasons. The goal since the 70s and continuing on to date is one of cost containment. And that cost containment is aggressively and relentlessly pursued and achieved by giving the facade of healthcare without ever providing it. Let me give a couple examples of inadequate health care that viewers may be able to identify with, either directly or indirectly. Asthma sufferers in a prison system are forced to live with a medical death sentence. As everyone knows who suffers from asthma, out here, you are in need of key medication and inhalers. Without both, you have a desperate time breathing and eventually can go into respiratory distress and die. No less so in the prison system. However, for an inmate to be given the correct meds and an inhaler that's not expired and that actually is sufficient to the need, they have to fill out a medical services request, a kite, request to staff, whatever the form is called at that particular prison. He submits that form to be seen by a nursing staff. When he goes in to be seen by a nursing staff, that does not mean that he's going to be handed an inhaler. Sometimes it takes days or weeks to get that inhaler. And as we all know, in that time frame, an individual can die. In one such case, in order for an inmate to be able to breathe while waiting for an inhaler, he was forced to hang his head over his cell toilet multiple times during the day and flush that toilet for one reason and one reason only, and that was to get circulation of air so he could breathe. That is a problem. That is a gross, inadequate delivery of healthcare, facade of healthcare without ever giving it. Another example of inadequate healthcare delivery is one where an inmate was bitten by a brown recluse spider. He knew it was a brown recluse spider when he took his sock off, killed it, took it to medical, explained to the nurse what it was. She agreed it was a brown recluse spider, threw it in the trash, gave him a Tylenol and a Band-Aid, and told him to come back in 3 days if it got worse. 3 days pass, it gets worse. His leg is getting red hot. His foot is getting compromised. The skin integrity is becoming worse. He's a brittle diabetic on top of that. He goes back into medical. She sees what's happening. She tells him to put a cold compress on, which is totally inaccessible within a prison system. The inmates can't go to the commissary and buy cold compresses. Sends him back to his cell with an ibuprofen and yet again another Band-Aid. Days go by, inmates eventually take him back to the medical unit where they see he's in real trouble. His foot is now black and the redness and the swelling has gone up past his knee. They send him to an outcount to an area hospital, but instead of sending him one that's 30 minutes away, they throw him into a transport bus and drive him 3 hours away in shackles to be seen by an ER doctor who promptly tells him that if he had been there 3 weeks ago, they wouldn't have to amputate his leg above the knee. They amputated his leg. Within 24 hours, they have him back on a transport bus to be taken back to the prison without any pain meds. And he is given one crutch and put back in his cell. 2 good examples of inadequate healthcare delivery. Given, but it's the wrong kind of healthcare delivery and it's too little too late. Inadequate healthcare oftentimes leads to unnecessary and early death for these inmates. One such case was a young inmate in his early 30s who had a sore on the top of his head. That sore started to bother him, not too much at the beginning, but it continually got worse, consistently became hurtful, hard to wash his hair, didn't really know what it was. He went to medical numerous times. They gave him cream to put on it, told him to use a certain kind of shampoo, which he did. All of a sudden, within weeks, his system just completely shut down. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't fill out a medical services request to get to medical. He declared a medical emergency 3 times in less than 48 hours. Correctional staff did have to get him to medical. They get him into the infirmary, and the nurse that was on duty recognized that he was in real trouble. She called for an ambulance without checking with her superiors, got him to an outside hospital where they immediately put this boy on a ventilator and could not figure out what was wrong with him because the system refused to provide him with the medical records and the history of what had happened to him prior to his entering the hospital. The nurse took it upon herself to contact the family outside of the prison system so they could get to the emergency room due to the fact that the doctor had intimated to the nursing staff that he was not going to make it. The family gets there within 30 minutes of his demise. He died on the ventilator due to a staph infection that had categorically been not treated at all. We consult with families one-on-one in order to educate them about the system and what they need to be doing on behalf of the inmate. And we provide the necessary tools to get that done. Family members absolutely must understand that when they have a loved one locked up in the prison system, it is their responsibility to understand how the mechanics of that system work, not only for themselves, but for the benefit of that inmate. It is their responsibility to get the right documents in place, not only for themselves, but for the benefit of that inmate. And it is their responsibility to understand and know what to do in case of an inmate death. That family member must be the CEO, president, secretary, and treasurer of that inmate, because that inmate is not going to be able to do what needs to be done for his benefit in garnering adequate health care because the system is not going to allow him to do so. Ideally, what the Institute wants is families and inmates themselves to contact us before they go into the system. When you do that, we are able to educate you about the system. We are able to get the right documents in place before you go into the system, and we are able to strategize a plan that will endure and last during the entire time of your incarceration. For those families who already have individuals in the system, we want you contacting us for the same reasons. But in addition to those reasons, we want you contacting us so you can receive the services that we know you're going to need for the issues that are going to happen to you day to day and in serious life-threatening situations. The Institute has been doing what it does for 23 years. And there is a common denominator running through every healthcare problem and death issue. And that common denominator is this: families are clueless about what to do and how to handle medical conditions that arise with their loved ones. And they are equally clueless about what to do should death occur. They talk when they shouldn't, and when they do talk, they say the wrong things. And when you're clueless about something, serious mistakes and bad decisions are made. Families are overmatched by a system that feeds off of their ignorance, and they are undergunned due to a lack of knowledge, understanding, and information, and how to apply all three. The Institute wants to change that. And the way we accomplish that is through our consulting services and the other services that we provide. The Institute has the opportunity to do something powerful that has never been done before. We have launched a national campaign to bring awareness to what we do on a much larger scale, and to ask families of inmates and friends of inmates and inmates themselves to lock arms with us in order for us to help you further and more powerfully understand what your medical rights are and how to use them. There are multiple ways individuals can get involved with the Institute to affect change. But one way in which everyone needs to get involved is by donating your dollars to the Institute so we are able to do some key things. Your dollars help us educate families on how to deal with that system for the benefit of that inmate. Your dollars educate the public and allow us to set the record straight for the public on the issue of healthcare delivery and the billions of dollars that pay for those contracts that result in inadequate care and unnecessary deaths. Your dollars help us explain to the public that inmate health care has a direct result and an effect on their own health care out in free society and the cost of their insurance premiums. Your dollars allow us to attract qualified attorneys across the country who have an expertise in the subspecialty of law, who are willing to review these cases. If you have a loved one in prison now and you as a family member are experiencing problems with adequate health care, getting them health care, fighting for their lives, you understand how important these dollars can be in order to effect meaningful change and get help for your loved one. Countless numbers of families of inmates and inmates themselves are of the belief that they can't fight City Hall. Every dollar counts. There are 2.5 million people locked up in this country. The way I figure it, each individual inmate has a minimum of 2 family members. If you do the math, that's 5 million folks. Every dollar counts. If every individual donated $10, $20 to the Institute, can you imagine what the Institute can accomplish for the benefit of the families of those who are incarcerated, those who are living, and those who have died? We can accomplish so much. If you're watching this video, it's likely that you have a reason for doing so. Your donation helps, individually, collectively, and overall. And I am asking you to donate to the Institute through one of their funding platforms, one of which is located on this page.